Hello, Mike Bruno here from PKI Solutions, coming at you through the power of the internet. I'm a developer working on PKI Spotlight. PKI Spotlight is revolutionary new cybersecurity monitoring software that gives organizations confidence in their identity and encryption systems. Today, I'm going to demonstrate the process of installing and setting up PKI Spotlight in a lab environment. We'll be setting up a new PKI Spotlight controller server. Then we'll install and configure the PKI Spotlight agent on a Windows server hosting multiple Active Directory certificate services roles. Finally, we'll connect the agent to the controller. Feel free to use this video as a reference guide when installing PKI Spotlight in your own environment, but please do not consider this to be an example of a fully hardened production deployment of Spotlight. I'm going to start off by installing the PKI Spotlight controller. In terms of my environment, I have a Hyper-V VM hosted on my laptop here, running Windows 2019 with 2 gigs of RAM. The controller supports Windows Server 2016 through 2022. I have IIS pre-installed, but the controller installer is capable of laying down all prerequisites automatically, so you don't need to worry about that. So let's get started. I'm going to run the installer as an administrator. And once the wizard pops up here, I'm going to click Next. I'm going to scroll all the way to the end of the EULA. Make sure I have the whole thing committed to memory. Just kidding. Click that I accept it. Click Next. Now here it's asking me if I want to use a built-in database server or an external one. For this example, I'm going to use a built-in database server, meaning that the installer is going to automatically lay down SQL Express 2017. And then I'll hit install. We're laying down the software. And here we're installing SQL Express. And the setup is complete. So I'll hit close, wait for this window to disappear, and let SQL Express finish installing. Now that the PKI Spotlight controller is installed, let's go ahead and configure it. So I'm going to browse to my controller server /PKI Spotlight. I'm being asked to authenticate. So I'm going to log in as a user who is a local administrator on the Spotlight server, but is not in any special Active Directory groups, such as domain admins or enterprise admins. So here I am logged in, and as you can see, I have a notice right here saying that I need to configure the controller. So I'll click on that hyperlink, and that's going to take me to a place to specify the permissions on the controller. The controller has 3 access modes: administrators, operators, and readers. Administrators can do anything at all on the controller, including changing settings and approving new agents. Operators can do everything except to access the settings screen or make changes to settings. Readers, as the name implies, have only read access to the controller. This is a good role for your operations, auditing, and compliance folks who only need to be able to see events and alerts. As you can see, I've created 3 groups specifically for PKI Spotlight controller access. I recommend you do this in your environment as well in order to maintain the principle of least privilege. Also note that specifying built-in domain groups such as domain users or domain admins has proven to be problematic on this screen. I'm going to go ahead and click Save now. And a success message shows up, meaning that these settings were committed. The next thing I'm going to do is access the license screen here. I'm going to upload a license file. Unless you have a license installed, you won't be able to add any agents to the controller. So upload my license here, and as you can see, it's reflected in the controller again. In terms of acquiring a license, you can reach out to info@pkisolutions.com. If you'd like to try out the product before you purchase it, we do offer a trial license which is valid for 30 days. Here on the data retention screen, you can specify for how long you'd like PKI Spotlight events and alerts to be stored in the backend database. There are some other things you can configure here in the settings screen, such as setting up email subscriptions to events and alerts. Those will be covered in a future video. So we're going to move on to the agent installation now. The server I'm logged into has several ADCS roles installed, including Certification Authority. In order for the PKI Spotlight agent to be able to see Certification Authority activity, such as the issuance of certificates and CRILs, we need to install the PKI Spotlight exit module. So I'll do that now. I'll run the exit module installer as administrator. And we'll run through this wizard here. And we're done, so I'll click close. Now the exit module has to be configured in the certification authority, but we're going to hold off on that step right now. Now we're going to go ahead and install the actual PKI Spotlight agent. Once the installation wizard completes, we see this screen that prompts us to run a configuration tool. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here we are in the agent configuration utility. I'm going to come back to this Prerequisites tab and move over to the Controller Connection tab. Here, I'm going to paste in our controller URL. Note that it has to be HTTPS. It needs to be over TLS, and the controller server does have to have a trusted TLS certificate installed. The agent needs to trust that certificate. So I'm going to hit the test connection button, which will fire an API on the controller to make sure that the agent can talk to the controller. As you can see, it can. Now I'm going to move over to the Pulse tab. PKI Pulse is an exciting new feature of Spotlight which performs in-depth monitoring of your ADCS certification authority to determine not just whether it looks alive, but that it is truly alive and working. This revolutionary feature should serve to greatly reduce the occurrence of lengthy CA outages and surprise CRIL expirations. Among other checks, PKI Pulse can determine whether the CA has lost access to its private signing key, something which isn't evident in the certification authority snap-in unless you attempt an action which involves a signing event, such as issuing a new CRIL. So I'm going to check the Pulse Enabled option here, and then I'm going to specify an interval for how frequently I want Pulse to check my CA. I'm going to go with 5 minutes. Now keep in mind that if you leave the interval at 0, that means that Pulse is disabled. In the future, Pulse support will be added for additional ADCS roles. Here in the Logging tab, we can specify the directory where we want log files to be stored. You can also specify the verbosity level that you want the agent to log at. So the default is info, but if you want to see more detailed logging, you can pick debug. And if you want less logging, you can pick error or none. The max log size option specifies how big log files can get before a new log file is started. Days to keep specifies for how many days you want log files to stay on storage. And finally, timestamp offset specifies whether you want to see local timestamps or UTC timestamps on log messages. Before I finish up with the agent configuration, there's one piece of business we need to take care of. Do you remember the exit module that we installed? Now's the time to configure it in the CA. So I'm going to open the CA snap-in, go to the properties of the CA, access the exit module tab. I'll click add, and then you'll see PKI Spotlight exit module is already listed. I'll select it, click OK. Now when I click apply, I'm going to be prompted to restart the CA service. If you're doing this in a production environment, make sure that this is done during a change window. By restarting the CA service at this point, we actually killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only did we set up the PKI Spotlight exit module, but we also caused the new CA security rule to take effect. The PKI Spotlight agent installer automatically creates this local PKI Spotlight agent service users group and assigns it read access to the CA object. This allows the Spotlight agent to monitor the CA object for things like the addition or removal of key recovery agents. The PKI Spotlight Agent Service Users Group by default only includes the built-in network service account, which is the account that the PKI Spotlight agent runs as by default. If for any reason you need the agent to run in the context of another account, you need to be sure to add that account to this group. Now it's time to access the Prerequisites tab. When I click the Run Checks button, the configuration utility will detect whether there are any access issues which need to be remediated in order for the PKI Spotlight agent to perform its job. These checks cover not only the CA role, but the other ADCS roles such as NDES-SCEP, OCSP, and web enrollment, whatever happens to be installed on this particular server. So I'll go ahead and click the Run Checks button and wait for them to complete. And everything looks good. Okay, so we're done configuring the agent. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Save Configuration button. And I'm going to be prompted to start the services. So I'll check both the agent service and the pulse service. And I'll click the Start Services button. Now they're started. So now that my agent is installed and running, I'm going to come back over to the controller here. And I'm going to click on Agents and then All. And we'll see that my new agent is already checked in. But as you can see, the host tile here is yellow, meaning that the agent is pending approval. So since I'm an administrator, I'm going to hit this ellipsis and click Approve. After a few minutes, the host will appear online. So it's been about 2 minutes, and you can see that all these tiles here are now green. So each of these tiles outside of host and NTDS represent a ADCS role that's installed on this agent. As you can see, this CA tile has a pulse icon to the left of it, and that indicates that IsLive monitoring is enabled for that role on this agent. The NTDS tile being green indicates that this agent is monitoring the public key services container of the Active Directory forest that this agent server is a member of. One agent per Active Directory forest is automatically designated by PKI Spotlight to perform NTDS monitoring. In today's demonstration, we deployed a PKI Spotlight controller, installed the PKI Spotlight agent on an existing ADCS server, and finally, we connected the agent to the controller and observed the ADCS server being monitored. Before I go, I wanted to point out a really cool benefit of PKI Spotlight. A single PKI Spotlight controller can monitor ADCS servers in multiple Active Directory forests. There's no reliance on AD for controller and agent communication. As long as each agent can communicate with the controller over a TLS port, you should be good to go. Well, that's it for today. I hope you found this demonstration helpful. For more information about PKI Spotlight or other services offered by PKI Solutions, please visit us at pkisolutions.com or send us an email at info@pkisolutions.com. This is Mike Bruno signing out. Thanks for watching.